Sierra Leone has repeatedly experienced election-related violence in every electoral cycle since its independence in 1961. Majority of the violence documented is driven by political manipulation of ethnic differences against a background of other structural factors, including lingering societal injustices, uneven distribution, and access to state resources. These historical issues and social factors are largely unresolved and they remain latent. The West African Network for Peace Building, ONEP, has developed a policy brief, Sierra Leone's 2023 general elections, challenges and opportunities for democratic consolidation. So this morning, to discuss what's in the brief, the findings and the recommendations, we have Dr. Aissata Maoy. She's the National Coordinator, Sierra Leone West African Network for Peace Building, ONEP here in Sierra Leone. Good morning, Doc, and welcome to the show.
Good morning,
It is a pleasure, as always, having you. And we also have with us Mohamed Touré, he's Director of Operations, the Electoral Commission for Sierra Leone, ECSL, and he's here to give us updates on the Paramount Chief Members of Parliament elections that were held over the weekend, and also the announcement of the commencement of campaigns that will start tomorrow, hopefully. Good morning, Mr. Touré, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Lamana. Good morning, viewers.
I'll start with you quickly. The elections conducted over the weekend. I was reading someone was posting on social media. She was actually saying the elections, the 2023 elections are already started with the PCMP elections because they'll be representing their people as well in Parliament. How is this part of the whole electoral cycle and process?
Yeah, the Parliament of Australia is composed of elected parliamentarians, elected for through universal suffrage, based on the registration of voters conducted by the Electoral Commission of Australia. It also comprises of a segment which represents the paramount chiefs in the country. Every district is supposed, besides Western area, Western rural urban and Western area rural districts, all other 14 districts are expected to elect a paramount chief representative who will represent all paramount chiefs of the district. So normally these elections are conducted much earlier than the general elections, and in some cases consensus building takes place in districts, and paramount chiefs in these districts come together to identify someone amongst them who will represent them in Parliament. Now, when nomination opened for the PCMP elections, we received nomination for candidates for all districts. In some districts, we only received one nomination, which means those districts went uncontested. And some other districts, we received more than one nomination, which required the commission to conduct elections in these districts. So on Saturday, 20th of May, we held we conducted elections for PCMP in Falaba district, Bombali district, Cambia district, Bon district, and Pujon district. So in these 5 districts, we conducted elections there, and the elections generally went on peacefully because we have, save for Bombali, where one chiefdom election could not be held in one chiefdom because of issues with the Gazette. That election is now going to take place today, after the 2nd. But generally, the election went on peacefully, and we have retrieved the results, brought them to our data center, and tallying of those results is going to be done soon. And in the course of the week, the Chief Electoral Commissioner will definitely announce the outcome of those elections.
So, who are the people who are voting in these elections? That has been some of the questions. I was listening on the radio this morning. and about the elections. And I was asking as well, who are the people who are eligible to vote in these elections? What are they using? Are they using the voters' ID card to vote? Is it like the normal election or different from what you'll be conducting on June 24th?
It's completely different. This election is unique. It is conducted using an electoral college. We know for paramount chief elections, for instance, the law requires that for every 20 taxpayers, one of them should be appointed to be a tribal authority. In other words, a person representing 20 taxpayers. So it is a collection of these tribal authorities who make up the voters. So it is not like the voters are the regular universal suffrage voters who all they have to do is to be 18 years and above. No. These are specific group of people, we call them tribal authorities. They are appointed for amongst chiefdom taxpayers, and they constitute the voters. And identification for this election deals with the local tax receipt. So on voting day, for you to be identified, you need to produce a local tax receipt bearing the name that is on the gazette. And by the way, the gazette is a voter register, a published gazette of that chiefdom. For the PCMP elections, we normally use the latest up-to-date gazette of that chiefdom. That's what is used to create the voter register. So for you to be able to be identified, you need to present a local tax receipt. But of course, there are challenges with that one, because local tax receipt hasn't got pictures of voters, and also the gazette hasn't got pictures of voters. So we rely again, the law, the Chieftaincy Act, which relates to the election of paramount chiefs, also requires that for the purposes of identification, we use the section chiefs or the town chiefs that are presumed to know the voters of those chiefdoms. So in the event there is an issue of identification, the section chief or town chief steps in to determine who bears the name on the register.
Yes. It's good you made mention of these elections over the weekend was quite peaceful, but you know, for the sake of discussions, we have been wondering about, you know, the situation now. We are in the rainy period, and, you know, what are some of the measures or provisions the ECSL have made, you know, in terms of those, you know, unforeseen situations? Because I was at home yesterday and it was raining, and again, my heart went out to you know, the body that they would be conducting elections. So what are some of the provisions that have been made?
Yeah, of course, the Commission is cognizant of the fact that we are going to conduct elections in the rains. It's expected to rain, even though we hope and pray that it doesn't, but we should expect that it might rain, because it's conducted, elections are going to be conducted in the rainy seasons. The Commission over the years, and will continue to, we have identified areas that require the construction of booths. We have, as part of our centers, some open spaces, some temporary structures. These open spaces and temporary structures will definitely require the construction of booths. Besides, even where we have structures as polling centers, schools for instance, we might still require construction of booths in some of these centers, because some centers might have more polling stations than the classrooms of those schools can accommodate. For instance, if you have a structure with 3 classrooms, and that structure, in that center, you have, say, 6 polling stations, it means you cannot, those classrooms cannot accommodate all of these polling stations. So we have identified all of these, and plans are in place to construct booths with tarpaulins to ensure that in the event there is rain, at least we'll be able to protect the materials and the staff from getting wet, and still be able to accommodate the process.
Generally, what was the level of, you know, turn up in terms of those who went out to vote?
For the PCMP election, you mean? Yeah, the turnout was high. You know, like I've said, it is more of a unique type of of elections conducted in chiefdom headquarter towns. And it requires all voters in the chiefdom to converge at the chiefdom headquarter towns where the elections are to be held. So in fact, it is not like the general election where centers are created right across the district, in the nook and crannies of the district. For PCMP elections, the elections are only conducted at the chiefdom headquarter towns. So this is where all tribal authorities converge to vote. So it is, the turnout was high. I cannot put a percentage to it as at yet, but definitely high. Again, because it is a type of election that requires the convergence of tribal authorities to at a particular center to cast their vote.
The work in progress, in terms of provisions that will be made, as you made mention of, facilities such as booth, weather, the atmosphere, weather conditions. Now let's talk about for persons living with disability, moving ahead, not for these elections that have been conducted. What are some of the plans made for persons with disabilities?
Yeah, currently the Department of Inclusion is very active. They are even as I speak, they are up country having engagements with persons with disabilities and other disadvantaged sections of our societies, and they are engaging them with regards the electoral processes, their participation, encouraging them to participate in the process, because of course the Commission is very cognizant of the fact that for election also requires inclusion of different segments of the population. We also intend to construct ramps for at some polling centers to ease accessibility for persons with disabilities. Of course, in identifying our polling centers, we made effort to ensure that we do not have polling centers at places that are challenging for persons with disabilities, but definitely we could not afford to have all of our centers much more comfortable, because we do not own the structures. We rely on public facilities in some areas. There are some areas you cannot even find public facilities to use. But for centers that are disability challenging, we are planning to construct ramps to facilitate the movement of persons with disabilities.
Continue to stay with us. We'll come back to you, Mr. Trey. Let's move to Dr. Mayoy. The WANEP Alert and Response Mechanism, WAM policy brief on Leone and the elections. What informed this, Doc? I've read the document. It's okay. I would say the rich document with a lot of findings and recommendations as well.
Thank you so much, Lamrana. And first and foremost, WANEP is the structure. And in our early warning system, because this is an alert for response mechanism, we have the structure like for every country where WANEP is in existence. When we're approaching elections, we always bring out a policy brief for that country. And this is the case for Sierra Leone. We have a pre-election policy brief, and there's going to be a post-election policy brief as well. Mm-hmm. So in fact, this one would have come a long time before now, like 5-6 months ago. But considering the resources and other things, so it took us time to put this together. What informed this policy brief is that we, as an early warning institution, we have been gathering data, monitoring how post-election era is in this country, and also those things that we think that are a recipe to chaos. Mm-hmm. And hence we stand for promoting promoting peace building in the country. We want to inform the general public that these are findings, and we should work together as a country in terms of trying to ensure peace is sustained. So this is why we bring out this policy brief to inform our partners, local media, and other people that there is this tension going on in the country, and we should find ways of trying to ensure we mitigate them. So maybe I can go straight.
Yes, one of the points I want to ask is in one of the areas you spoke about seeming deterioration of state-citizen relationship.
Yes.
Let's start with that, and you get us into the document.
Okay, yes. You know, for a long time, like in the past few years, we have been receiving complaints. We have been gathering data on how citizens are discontent with the way and manner the state is being run, especially looking at some state institutions like the police, the judiciary, that they are not satisfied the way in which they execute issues in the country. So citizens are disgruntled. This is the language that I will use, that citizens are disgruntled with the way and manner these institutions are operating, and the government does not give them information as and when necessary. So these are all some of the issues that we have been collecting data on, and this is what informs that particular issue on the policy brief.
Okay. Now into the document. You spoke about mitigating factors as well, and key resilient mitigating factors. Yeah. But the findings, what are the key issues that one think are critical for this election? Okay,
the key issues. In fact, we start from after the SLPP took power in 2018. You know, the formation of the COI. Which the opposition was greatly against, the fight against corruption, which was informed also by the Accountant General's office, the reports that came out. You know, all of these issues compounded, and the opposition greatly think that this government is after them and trying to silence them. So these are some of the key issues. And also the level playing field. The government is being accused of not providing the level playing field. Well, it's not only government, like state-owned institutions like the police and the judiciary, like I was saying, that they interfere a lot, they listen from others from above, and so the level playing field is not there. And people think that they have been oppressed. And as a result of that, the elections, these forthcoming elections, tend to be skewed at supporting only the SLPP, which is in power. And so these are information that we get, and we have the data that we collect on a daily basis, because one cannot just sit and put this information together. It must be that these are information that we have. We looked at issues that happened in Bombali, when the issue of the generator came in. Persons were killed in that particular area. Till today, we cannot tell whether it was the police or the military or the citizens, whoever shot those bullets against those civilians. And that is one issue. The issues in Lunsar as well, where the youths or young people are also disgruntled against their paramount chief or local authorities that they have there. We looked at the incident in Tombo as well, and other areas. And then above all, the August 10th, 8th to 10th riots, which also caused the death of many civilians and also some police officers. And the way and manner in which also the findings, the investigation went, they have been discussed that people are not satisfied with the way and manner in which some of these findings are represented. And largely, the opposition parties, not only the APC, some of them feel that they are also not being into the process proper, because they feel that the government in power always takes decisions. They do things that suit them rather than trying to have an inclusive approach towards nation building. So once this is lacking, you see even also on social media, wherein the politicians also have taken social media to be their cover stock, wherein you see they'll be taunting each other. You know, you have those that are called the vigilantes, that once issues are being posted on social media, you see people also trying to fight, trying to label those posting with all sorts of character in this. And then so people think that they are not too safe, you know. And me, I can give an example. Sometimes when I come to radio or television and talk, people are always scared. They say, you should be careful. Oh, you should be careful because the way and manner in which you talk, you should be careful. And I've got like even issues with both APC and SLPP attacking me in this particular forum of things that they are doing that we are pinpointing that they should stop doing and rather build a conducive society. So these are all factors, and when you put these factors together, you tend to understand that the issue of peace is paramount. And we should try as much as possible to let people understand that this country is what we have, and then peace is what we are looking for, and we need to sustain. You look at also the peace index. You know, for the past years, we were doing very well. Until recently. I will not say we are still doing bad, but you see that we keep deteriorating when it comes to the position in which we have, because of all of these political machinations, the manipulations that we are having, you know, using ethnicity, manipulating politics, manipulating ethnicity in our country, trying to for it to look like we're having a tribal discord in this country, you know. So these are all the things that we are looking at. You know, this is why some of those findings you see on the policy brief came out. So because these are key in terms of nation building, and people do not trust the ECSL as well. Because we have been hearing this information, we have been seeing the information on social media, on every platform we have had on radio, where people talk about the independence of these institutions, that we should take a look at them and investigate them properly. And also, maybe they require more trainings for them to be able to understand how to live, how to work independently for us to be able to have peace in this country. But the other thing is also, like, we have this political manipulative idea across all political parties. It's not only one or two parties. All of these political parties that you see we have in this country, everybody wants to gain favor, so they tend to be manipulative of the situation, trying to manipulate the minds of the Sierra Leonean citizens, which is key. And this is critical, because you look at a situation, a country like this, where you have most or majority of the people illiterate, you know, for them to decipher what is fake news and what is not fake news is critical as well. So by the time people begin to realize, oh, this post we have been CG's law, where then talk about APC or SLPP or NGC, this, for saying now, so then they try for this now wrong information. For people to understand this, it is very critical. So we have a lot to do as a country.
You know, in terms of statistics, it's stated here that 551 election-related, you know, violent activities since, you know, the first time we had election, and that has been a long period, and that's a huge number, 551. So what would you say in terms of the area where you mentioned that there's limited space for political dialogue? However, there are 551. These political parties do not find ways or means to dialogue, except it comes to elections. What are some of the recommendations in those areas?
Well, some of the recommendations may be how we should try, because all of them, you see, they are pursuing one agenda, one for rule. And having pursuing that particular agenda is what brings them to be manipulative against the country or against the citizens, because everybody is trying to sell their own agenda, making the other political party or the other person looks bad. So this is where you see the confusion among them or from these political parties themselves. At the end of the day, you understand it's self-aggrandizement that some of them are looking for. You know, we have seen in recent, we have smaller political parties going to support a bigger political party just because of what they are going to get from that political party. And you have seen in the past weeks, we have seen the crossovers from to SAPC and to also the SLPP. We have seen all of these things, you know. And what I pity the smaller political parties for is they cannot compete. The environment is not there for them to be able to compete, because you're looking at even the financial resources required for them to be able to set up offices in different parts of the country so that they are eligible to be registered. So it's very challenging for most of them. You know, some of them, we have got information, some of them even get some of these monies from the major political parties. So, okay, set up there so that by the time elections is there, we'll be able to merge as a force, you know. So they depend also on these big political parties for them to survive. So I think one of the recommendations would be trying to ensure there is a level playing field for each and every person. You know, the gap between the big parties and the smaller parties is too wide in such a way that trying to merge that gap, trying to reduce it will be very difficult. But also we should look at the laws that we have in this country, trying to look at the legal framework. This is why it calls for, we need to have a referendum at this time, trying to look at our constitution to see what are those things that still are impeding factors to the democratic developments in this country, and try to see how as citizens, in an inclusive manner, trying to profile solutions in order for us to be able to reduce the gap between the bigger and the smaller political parties. Well.
There is an area that you mentioned, the use of marshals, within political parties. This has been an ongoing, factor with every political cycle. The opposition party, to some extent, will think they don't trust the police and will create their own security. How worrying is this? Because it's still happening. We've seen it out there.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of some of those incidents that occurred before the elections, or before now. There was this elections in Leone district. I think its constituency is 010 in Leone district, where the death of a young man occurred. So, I went right to the village where this incident occurred. I went to the spot where this young man was killed. This young man was killed by marshals. That were brought into this particular constituency because it started by flouting campaign calendars or disturbing an opponent during campaign periods of by-elections. So these thugs or marshals that are being used are it is very critical that the ban on them is to be implemented accordingly, so that it will favor all political parties, so that each person that is going to have marshals disregard that particular idea and try to strengthen the police and ensure the police act professionally. Because they keep saying they don't trust the police. When APC is in power, the SL people will say, I don't trust the police. When SLPP is in power, the APC will say, I don't trust the police. So why not equip these police officers or the security in general, the security sector in general, so that they act professionally? We do not have issues when it is APC ruling. We don't have issues when it is SLPP ruling against the police. So these are the problems that we have. We should try to strengthen those institutions and ensure the ban on the marshals or whatever groups or gangs they are using is being looked into again properly, So
we'll come back to you, Doc. We'll come to look at the recommendations and how, the election management bodies and the political parties could use this ahead of the elections. Campaign will start tomorrow. We'll come again to you, Mr. Ture, to talk about the campaigns that will start tomorrow. What are the plans? I'll come to you again. Yesterday we saw in the news the Chief Electoral Commissioner and National Returning Officer announcing the date for the campaign in consultation with political parties. What are the rules, if I may ask?
Firstly, the meeting yesterday was in fulfillment of the legal provisions of Section 154, which requires that the chairman of the commission, in consultation with political parties, will declare the campaign period and establish campaign timeline. So yesterday we adhered to that provision, and in a meeting attended by representatives of all political parties, independent candidates. Some independent candidates were there, international partners. We drew up a campaign timeline through balloting at district level. All political parties that went through nomination in each district balloted for campaign days. So it was a very transparent process. The atmosphere was cordial, it was jovial, political parties were interacting. There was a lot of fun, but amidst all that, we are able to achieve our goal by establishing a campaign timeline signed by political parties representatives as well as stakeholders present. So basically, it implies that all political parties are expected to adhere to the timeline to campaign as per days chosen by the representatives. So if you have a campaign date in, say, Western Urban for 23rd, which means on the 23rd, it is only your political party that should be out in campaigning. And campaigning in that regards relate to campaigning for presidential, parliamentary, councillor, or mayoral candidates. So all of the elections, you campaign for that day.
We've heard of alliances, political parties coming into alliance, and they all have their own day, the days they should campaign. In the instance where you have this political party supporting this, is it acceptable for them to use the day of the other political party and campaign as well?
Well, for us at the CSL, we don't take cognizance of alliances because political parties went through us as political parties. When the political parties went for nomination, their nomination as individual independent political parties. And when we are balloting for campaign days, they selected their days as political parties. So for us, our expectation is that political parties that have certain days should campaign on those days. And because once you start to accommodate alliances and those things, it becomes complex. And we want to ensure that each political party campaign on the day chosen by that political party. That's the requirement.
The campaign pattern, the new regulation that there should be no rallies, they should converge in one area, is that part of the rules, or was that made clear at the meeting?
That has been the consensus by political parties in relation to the PRC. You will know that that is not a mandate of the CSL. It was that issue came about as a result of consultation with political parties. They made a recommendation, and the PRC approved that there is not going to be campaign rallies. But of course, all other forms of campaigning is accommodated, media, town hall meetings, etc. So
quickly before July comes in, I want to ask, can political parties swap, say, okay, we think we don't have the numbers, we want to give this other political party this day, they can use our day to campaign?
Again, like I've said, political parties came to us as political parties, and they are giving them date. And these days that will be allotted to political parties is in the purview of stakeholders, the police, international community. So when political parties are out on a particular day, we go back to look at the timeline and see whether it is that political party that is indeed supposed to be out. If not, then it will be a violation of the campaign timeline.
It's actually good that Lamana brought in the specifics and clarity, about the campaign which you made mention, because those out there, when you make mention of campaign, it's the normal way, the way the things used to go as usual, to go into the streets of Freetown. But now we have, town hall meetings, which were the provision. So quickly to wrap up on that.
Yes, like I said, the rallies have been frowned upon, and it is expected that all other forms of political campaign will be accommodated, with the exception of street rallies. So we expect political parties to engage in town hall meetings, door-to-door campaigning, radio discussions, TV programs, etc., just to send out their messages.
Continue to stay with us. Over to you, Dr. Mahoy. You know, it's interesting we're discussing this, and a huge percentage of rallies, campaigns has, you know, its foundation on youth. And you made mention here that youth unemployment are some of the factors or early warning signs, you know, for disaster. So what are some of the provisions you think, you know, to these youths particularly? Because as you made mention, you know, earlier, youths are being used when it comes to elections and the likes, but they are not being used to you know, to include civic responsibility and the like. So what would you say in that direction?
Okay, I think we are charged with a major responsibility in terms of the youth bulk that we are experiencing as a country. Because when you check the population of Sierra Leone, a huge percentage, over 70%, is youth, that young people between ages 15 and 35. So, and looking at the way the economy is, or the way the country, the trajectory that we are into at the present, it's alarming, because the youth unemployment rate keeps growing, and then it calls for concern, because most of the corners you pass in this country, especially in this city, in Freetown, you see youth taking drugs. And these are the people that we are looking up to, that they will be able to fix this country, because we are going. We have got a missed opportunity already. So they are supposed to be the people taking development into their own hands. But now we are experiencing some kind of serious setbacks when it comes to this. So what should happen is this, that now we are coming towards elections. I think the paramount, one of the most paramount things the new government should be able to do is to ensure that there is huge youth employment, just to remove the minds of the youth from the streets and from all those dangers or bad things that they put themselves into, or allow politicians to bring them into. They should focus on agriculture, which is key. I mean, this would be saved for another day, you know, but this is one of the directions, because this is where we'll be able to ensure there is employment among this set of the population. And they say an idle mind is the devil's playing ground. When people are busy, young people are busy, of course, they will not be able to, they will not start thinking of those odd things that will endanger their well-being. So for me, I think this is it. And for these elections, I'm just trying to talk to young people out there that me, Aissata Mahoy, if I am a politician, I will not ask my son to go out on the streets to cause chaos, because I know the implications as a mother or as a politician, what will come back to me when my son is involved. So those politicians that they dance and sing for, that send them to do things that they cannot ask their relatives to do, they should not listen to them. Rather, be law-abiding citizens. This is the advice I have for them for these particular elections. And I'm also happy that the ECSL man is here to reinforce their statement on the banning of rallies, and also ensure that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. Because you cannot provide, you cannot allow a certain political party to have an edge over its opponents or over the opposition. So if you want to allow, you begin to allow all of them. But people should also note that violent activities is a recipe for taking us back to where we're coming from, and we will not want this around this time. We should have the elections being peaceful, and we maintain to be peaceful citizens.
One of the recommendations I want us to end on is that of the use of MACP.
Yeah.
You know, we all understand when it comes to election, you see military in it, but one episode on this policy brief, you're advising that the electioneering process should not be militarized.
Yes, yes, which is true, Lamrana. And because we have seen We have seen incidents in the past wherein military is heavily involved in elections processes, and we see the aftermath of it. So what we're saying there in essence is that first, the citizens too, they have the responsibility to protect their space, to protect the country as well, and to understand their civic rights and responsibilities and abide by the rule of law. You know, I know sometimes it's challenging for the security sector. So the Office of National Security, through the Ministry of Internal Affairs, through the Office of National Security, should ensure that all issues that has to do with every military presence in any electioneering processes, they should begin to reconsider it, as it will create panic, it will create fear. In fact, it will create a situation where, if we are not careful, we'll get voter apathy in the outcome of the elections. And this is not what we want as citizens. Already, for every process that is being marked by military, you see the outcome of it. And, you know, all right, it's good at times to have stringent laws, but also, I think for us as civil society as well, should have the onus and responsibility of ensuring a lot of civic education is being mounted from this present tomorrow as campaign starts, so that each and every day, in all the four corners of Sierra Leone, we should have every radio station or community engagement being marked with civic education, so that people understand their civic rights and responsibilities as well. Because some people misquote or misunderstand information and tend to always take the law in their own hands. So this is not what we want at this time. And the military should also know when to respond.
You know, quickly, Lamana, I know we want to round up, but the last time you were here, we spoke of, you know, poverty mindset and the you know, the need to use again youth. Continuously, I get to say the youth because a lot of responsibility has been placed on them. You know, as we round up now, what should be the way forward? Not to the political parties who use these youth, but to themselves.
The young people
themselves. Young people themselves.
Yeah, you know, when you look at the patterns of unemployment, you know, there are some young people, you know, they will see the opportunity. They have the opportunity of working or being employed. They look low upon those opportunities. You know, there are some, they are looking for the opportunities, but they cannot find the opportunities. These are a different set already. So those that have the opportunity and think that you can get the platter of food on the table without working hard for it, this is not the world we are living in now. You go all over the world, they will tell you people have to be involved in some kind of job so that they will get food on the table. For me, this is a mindset I want the young people to have, not a mindset of where they come and give you 50,000 leones or 300,000 leones for you to be causing chaos or creating panic here and there. You should be able to think, even for yourself, for your generations yet unborn. Is this a Sierra Leone you're looking for? What Sierra Leone would you want to see in the near future? You think about this critically. For us that also lectures in the university, I think we have the responsibility also. For me as a lecturer, most of the students that have gone through me, each of my class, I'll spend 10 to 15 minutes talking about these things. That you don't go to the university only to get the paper, but rather when you come outside, it should reflect on what you're learning in the university and also try to create some impact. You know, so the mindset of young people should begin to change. Not this teacher is supposed to lecture me. If you say, you know, give me notes, I know they study. You are doing yourself and doing your generations yet unborn. So the mindset of young people should also start changing. We have seen these car washes that are being built for them. You know, some of them go there and some of them don't. But also, that is a discussion for another day, because definitely. It is also being politicized to a certain extent, you know. So for the purpose of this discussion, I think for me, the youth should have a mindset, and the mindset they should have is how to develop themselves, capacitate themselves, so that they can be strong people to take us on the lead for tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mara. Mr. Chiel, I want to end on asking how is the ECSL, you know, involving young people in these elections? I know you've recruited a lot of recruiting others as well to be part of the process, but how are you getting them along with the process?
Yeah, again, it is part of the process of inclusion. That falls within the purview of the Department of Inclusion. It has a broader perspective dealing with youths, women, persons with disabilities and the like. And with support from donor partners, they'll be largely involved in having stakeholder engagements nationally, all in a bid towards encouraging the participation in election. Of course, when it comes to election, the CSL becomes the largest employer of youths, because we are now going to the polls, and very soon in the course of the week, I'm sure adverts will be out for the recruitment of police staff. We are going to recruit more than 80,000 staff, and these are going to be largely young people. So the election period most times is a period that young people look forward to, and I'll also join Dr. Mahoy in encouraging young people to participate in the elections as voters, and refrain from act of violence, because of course most of the violence perpetuated in elections are being engineered by young people. They take the lead, and it really doesn't augur well for them. So we encourage them to be law-abiding and participate peacefully in the electoral process.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahoy. Mr. Tuhe from CSL will definitely be having these discussions as we move along. We'll be friends these coming days and months. Frequently we'll be here to talk about the elections. It started already, and we've been counting down, and it's so interesting that tomorrow campaigns will start, and by next week we'll be talking about going to the elections proper. But thanks for all you're doing, and thanks for joining us this morning.
I already have my suitcase in
I know, you should be moving
yes,
with it.
I'll be moving it. So you call me, I'm
Yeah,
there.
you just come, definitely. Well, thank you very much for always coming and adhering to our call.